As we begin to think about the nature of community today, we have a text before us that emphasizes God's preferential care for the poor and communal solidarity. The verses you're about to hear offer us a glimpse into the mindset of the early Christian community, what we call the apostolic church. Now, this period in Christian history is best known for its embodiment of radical sharing, mutual support, and daily fellowship. And this text invites us to consider how our faith communities today might reflect this same spirit of generosity. I invite you now to hear these ancient words as shared by Luke in the book of Acts.
Today's reading is from Acts 2, 42 through 47a. Community of believers. The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles, and all the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone, and God added daily to the community.
I've been thinking recently about something the Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said. He said, "My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together." These words, I think, echo the spirit of the Acts 2 text that we just heard. It's a call to embrace togetherness and to recognize that our very humanity is the fulfillment of genuine community. We can only be human together. This simple truth reveals the essence of community and forms the foundation of what it means to be the church in the 21st century. Our survival, our growth, our happiness, our collective progress are not solitary endeavors, but rather they're woven together, interdependent on the fate and well-being of our siblings in the church and beyond. Community, then, cannot exist in isolation. Yes, you can survive alone, but true flourishing, true thriving, only happens when we commit ourselves to communal living, walking with, supporting, and loving one another. Our reading from Acts this morning gives us a vision, a roadmap, if you will, on what genuine community might look like. You see, in the earliest days of the church, we're told that the believers were united and shared everything. They shared everything. They sold pieces of property and possessions and distributed the proceeds among those who were in need. They did not hesitate or debate. They simply did it. And this authentic, sometimes messy, interdependent community was marked by thinking of the other before self. Now, this example stands in stark contrast to how many churches and church communities operate today, especially as we look at the rise of Christian nationalism. So you might ask yourselves, what happened? What changed? Well, there are a number of contributing factors here. First, before the Enlightenment, the concept of self was much more communal. People understood their identity as bound up with their family, with their neighbors, with their community. But over time, cultural shifts began to emphasize the individual over the collective, and the church followed suit. Now, please don't misunderstand me here. The development of the concept of self and individual rights in and of themselves are not a bad thing, but it's a gray area. I say gray because this concept of self-actualization has also led people to turn inward, fulfilling their own wants and desires at the cost of their neighbor's well-being. So I would suggest that this is one of those places where we find a balance between self-care and fulfilling our responsibility to care for the least of God's people. That's the first change. But perhaps the more drastic one occurred when Christianity became more focused on believing in Jesus rather than following Jesus. Believing rather than following. So what's the difference? Well, believing means one's faith is subject to a particular set of doctrines or creeds or dogma. But following Jesus was and continues to be about doing the work of loving God and neighbor. Following Jesus challenges us to go further and deeper. Yes, it calls us to an inward faith, a set of beliefs and values and morals, but it also invites us to practice that faith outwardly and actively by embodying our commitment to God by serving others. This means moving beyond mere beliefs, beyond rituals and dogmas, and into a living practice of expansive inclusion, generosity, and service. But it goes even deeper than that. To live in authentic community is not only to share our resources, but to share one another's burdens and dreams, to share our joys and our sorrows. It means recognizing, as Desmond Tutu reminded us, that our humanity depends on the humanity of others. A rising tide lifts all boats, right? But what does this look like in real time? Well, in a word, renewal. In an upcoming newsletter article, I shared a Buddhist parable that goes like this. A man was being pursued by a tiger. And as he fled, he reached the edge of a cliff. And when the tiger got close behind him, he climbed down a vine hanging over the precipice. As he hung there, he noticed that there was another tiger waiting for him down below. And what's more, 2 mice began to gnaw on the vine. But it was at that moment that the man saw a wild strawberry growing out of the side of the cliff. He picked it and ate it. And truly, he thought to himself, how lucky I am to enjoy this strawberry. As we begin to think about renewal in the church, I think we find ourselves metaphorically between 2 tigers. Behind us lies the tiger of our collective past. As a faith community, we're guided by numerous positive things, right? Our traditions and the foundations of our belief. And yet, shadows also persist. There are historical events such as the Crusades and the Inquisitions, the Salem witch trials, and the doctrine of discovery that we simply cannot sweep under the rug. And segments of the church across history have associated themselves with positions supporting slavery, segregation, and found themselves on the wrong side of the civil rights movement. And unfortunately, this same kind of injustice and lack of moral clarity continues to challenge the church today. That's the tiger behind us. In front of us resides the tiger of an unpredictable future. It comes as no surprise to any of us that generational change within the church is imminent. This recognition is accompanied by an undeniable sense of uncertainty regarding what the future holds. The vine to which we cling symbolizes our institution and established norms. But no matter how tight we hold on to tradition, the church is going to be very different in the future. And none of us knows what that's going to look like. And that can be scary. But then there's that strawberry. In a very real way, that strawberry represents the renewal that we seek. You see, our best lives are not defined by the absence of suffering or by denying the past, but rather our best selves are demonstrated in our ability to confront reality in its entirety, the pain and the sweetness, the past mistakes, and the possibility of a better future. And by accepting all of it, our community can begin to embody the vision that God has for all of us. A vision characterized by peace and unity, by harmony and justice. And it's this ongoing process of renewal, what I like to call the living tradition of the church, that allows us to continue to love and to affirm and to build up. So my friends, let's be a church that follows Jesus, not just with our words, but with lives poured out in love. Let us look to the early church for inspiration, always remembering that the truest measure of our faith is found in our willingness to serve and to share, to expand our understanding and our acceptance of others. And finally, let us become a people who embrace the beautiful, if sometimes messy, community that we call church. May it become so. Amen.